One of the things that we hear a lot in our 20 groups, and this is on the retail side or on the buy here, pay here side, is to not become leveraged, right? And as a dealer, the more liquidity that you have and the ability that you have to be able to pivot when you need to pivot or to ramp up whenever opportunities present themselves, and not necessarily be in the position where you're having to make a payment to the bank consistently. I would say that's the biggest change that I've seen really in the last 4 to 5 years.
Zach here, and I'm really excited, I think for the third time, to have Jeff Martin, the CEO of the National Independent Automobile Dealers Association, or as everyone goes by, NIADA. And they represent thousands of independent dealers across the country. And as the industry navigates affordability concerns, inventory shifts, technology adoption, and changing consumer expectations, Jeff is helping shape the conversation and the advocacy efforts that impact dealers every day. Today, we're going to discuss the upcoming NIADA Convention and Expo, the biggest issues facing independent dealers, and what NIADA has planned for the rest of the year. So, Jeff, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you, Zach. Always good to visit with you and looking forward to this.
So, we're just weeks away from NIADA in Denver. What are you most excited about for this year's event?
And there are a lot of things I'm really excited about. Obviously, this is a new location for us, so I'm very excited about being in Denver in June. That'll be a little different than being out in Las Vegas. I'll say this: our the core of what we do, Zach, is really our education, and you've been to our events in the past. You've presented, that we're our breakout sessions are the reason that a lot of people come to the convention. I think what they find is that the networking is some of the most valuable stuff that they end up doing while they're at the convention, visiting with our vendors in the expo. But this year, I'm really excited, oddly enough, about our closing general session. I mean, I'm very excited to have Rocky as our keynote speaker. But Elizabeth Creer, who is going to be speaking on kind of what I would say is the looming, China wave that a lot of people have been talking about. I think that's going to be very educational, what she's going to share with us. I had an opportunity to visit with her a couple of times and seen her in person and always learn something there. And then we have Ryan with TikTok. And I think that we have so many of our dealers who have been talking about platforms that are out there that they can be a little bit more actively involved in. I think that's where a lot of our new buyers are at. I think they're on that TikTok platform. And so I'll be anxious to see, to hear Ryan's comments on how our dealers can be a little bit more active on TikTok and go find the buyers in that space. So that's the closing general session on Wednesday. Because it's so unique and so different from anything that we've offered in the past, that's the thing I'm probably the most excited about.
And when you talk to dealers around the country, what topics are they asking NIADA to address most urgently at this conference?
Yeah, Zach, I would say there are three things, and you touched on it at the very beginning. Affordability. We had a meeting in February with our board and some of the leaders from the different state associations, and we talked about issues that we really need to be tackling as an association. And I think affordability is probably the one that we struggle with the most. Our consumers have changed tremendously. Finding the inventory has become much more of a challenge. And so affordability is probably the biggest issue. But probably the shiniest thing in the water right now is the FTC and some of the new, I wouldn't say that they're new rules and regulations, but they put some form around some of the rules that have been there in the actual advertised price. And so I anticipate that session will be full. We've already had some webinars that we've put on from the association. I think we had some 300 dealers attend, or 300 attendees, I should say, attend our first webinar. I anticipate that that's still kind of the shiny thing in the water. I think people are starting to understand, what the expectation is going to be from the FTC. But I wouldn't be completely surprised if in the next week or so we didn't see another shoe drop that is going to pique people's interest even a little bit more. So I would say those are probably the two. And then the third one is really inventory, and that kind of goes with affordability, right? But finding capital and then finding inventory. And that's been a challenge for our dealers for quite some time. But really coming out of COVID, I think that we've seen more struggles. And that's what I'm hearing when I travel around the country. dealers asking us to take a look at. And, then you can throw some of the smaller ones in there, like garage liability insurance and some of the challenges that they have there. But that's all kind of in the ball of wax of affordability.
And as far as kind of inventory, any specific trends you guys are watching at NIADA kind of closely right now?
Well, I think there's two things. Certainly, the wholesale market, we're always watching that. From what we've been hearing, is there's going to be a number of EVs that are going to come onto the market coming out of the rental space and lease space. And so, if you're not in that market, I think for some dealers it might be it might create some concerns. For other dealers, I think they're going to look at it as an opportunity. And so, our dealers are going to sell whatever used cars are out there and whatever used cars are available. But it might create some opportunities when you see some of those vehicles coming into the market space that we haven't seen in the past. And so those are the trends that we're really monitoring and watching, and hopefully that'll help kind of bring down some of the pricing for the used car vehicles.
And interest rates, they've been a challenge for both consumers and dealers. How are NIDA members adapting kind of with that current trend?
One of the things that we hear a lot in our 20 groups, and this is on the retail side or on the buy here, pay here side, is to not become leveraged, right? I mean, as a dealer, the more liquidity that you have and the ability that you have to be able to pivot when you need to pivot or to ramp up whenever opportunities present themselves, and not necessarily be in the position where you're having to make a payment to the bank consistently. I would say that's the biggest change that I've seen really in the last 4 to 5 years. Some dealers were able to kind of get ahead of that. Some dealers are still struggling with that. And then for the consumer side, obviously, if the dealer is not leveraged, then they have some more flexibility where they can work with the consumer to try to get them into a vehicle. We have seen, we've seen the terms extended a little bit to help consumers make sure that vehicle or that payment is affordable. And I think you're going to continue to see some of those things, certainly in the very near future.
And big buzzword right now, AI. Of course, you have OpenAI recently even filing to go public, and Anthropic too. AI and automation are becoming major topics across automotive retail. Where do you see the biggest opportunities and maybe misconceptions from the independent dealer view?
Let me start by saying I'm not an expert in AI. Even for us here at the association, really in the last 6 months, we have, I'd say the last 12 months, but in the last 6 months, we've really adopted using AI more at the association. So I want to start by saying I'm not an expert here. So the opportunity I see is education. And I think a lot of people felt like AI was going to come in and take someone's job away. And I think that what we're hearing from dealers who have fully endorsed AI into their dealership, and we have some of them that are going to be speaking at the convention in a couple of weeks. I think what you'll hear them say is it's allowed us to become more efficient. It's allowed us to be more present with our consumers. And so I think that that's the opportunity. But I'm not here to educate people on like what that opportunity is. I think that the opportunity is educating yourself, making sure that you're attending the NIADA convention, other education opportunities, whether they be boot camps or joining 20 groups, and understanding what dealers are doing. Because I think, Zach, there's just so much unknown right now. The misconception, I really feel like the misconception is that AI is going to come and take your job away. And so the people that are afraid of that, again, we dealt with that a little bit inside of our association, and we have, I think, to make some of our employees feel more comfortable, we now take the position that when you work on a project, you can say, I worked on this project with the help of AI. It wouldn't be any different, Zach, than if you and I were working on a project together. And I think that's made it a little bit more acceptable to our employees. And so to me, I think the misconception is that AI is going to take everybody's job tomorrow morning.
This podcast is brought to you by Auto Manager, a complete dealership software platform. From inventory management and CRM to websites and marketing tools, Auto Manager helps dealers run their business more efficiently and close more deals. To learn more, visit automanager.com. Now, back to the show.
So we talked a little earlier about the FTC, but curious, what other legislative or compliance issues are currently at top of NIADA's advocacy agenda?
Wow, that one, Zach, really feels like a little bit of a moving target. Right to repair is something that we have been working on as an association
Mm.
for the last couple of years. We felt like we had a really good opportunity in the transportation bill this year. Just in 2 weeks ago, we saw language that was in the bill that we felt very comfortable with. At the last minute, the committee pulled it out, and so we realized that we still have a lot to work, a lot of work to do in that area. And I want to emphasize the reason that we're supporting this is it goes back to what you said in the beginning. It's affordability. And anything that we can do to make the vehicles or to make the product more affordable for the consumer, we feel like is advantageous, not just for the consumer, but obviously for the dealer as well. So right to repair is an issue that we're still working on. We have a couple of meetings scheduled next week where we're going to continue to push that. On the Senate side, we're not giving up on it on the House side either, and certainly working with the administration as closely as we can to make sure that we educate them and they understand why we're supporting that. Another one that's an interesting one that our board is going to be tackling in the very near future is a universal title. AMVA's been supporting that for quite some time. In fact, they're supporting a digital title. There are a lot of moving parts to that. But this again kind of goes back to affordability. If there was one national title or one universal title, the question becomes, could this make the industry more, or could it make the product more affordable? And I don't know the answer to that today, Zach, but I think that it's something that as an association, that's what we need to be doing. We need to be tackling those big issues, finding ways that we feel like it will benefit our members and supporting those whenever that opportunity presents itself.
And speaking of like NIADA membership, how has the association evolved to better serve today's independent dealer?
Man, that is a great question. And I would say it is evolving constantly. We walked through a 5-year strategic plan just last year, so we adopted it in 2026. There were a number of things in there that I feel like are going to put the association in a position to better represent the members in the future. Some of it is being more fiscally responsible. We recognize that that is key for any association that wants to be successful. They have to make sure that they have a strategic plan in place to make sure that they're viable, and part of that is being financially responsible. Another thing that our board has been very, very loud about is to make sure that we're making ourselves available and making education available to the members of our association. And so anyone who's been paying attention, whether it's on our social media platforms or through our weekly email that we send out called Dashboard, you'll see that we're doing a lot more boot camps. We're doing webinars. We're also bringing back the Certified Master Dealer program, which has kind of been a little bit on a hiatus for a couple of years. And so, and I don't even know, Zach, if that's all the answers, right? I think there are other ways that we can educate our members as well. The world is changing, and we've got to make sure that we're adapting and changing with that world. Working with our state associations, I mean, they play such a key, integral role. And I think sometimes as an association, as a national association, I think sometimes we can kind of take that for granted. And we've got to make sure that we're supporting those state associations so that they have the tools and the resources to go out and help educate. We have a shared membership, and so we have to make sure that we're putting education out there to help dealers be successful. And the number one thing in that area is certainly compliance. But over the last year and a half, and Zach, you and I have even talked about this off camera in the past, we've spent we're putting a lot more resources toward compliance, a lot more resources toward government relations, and making sure that we're very active in those arenas. I want dealers to feel comfortable that they can call NIADA on any compliance concern, and we can address that concern, and we can get them in touch with the appropriate person. So those are some of that doesn't change the focus of the association or the goal of the association. The way in which we deliver some of those things has probably evolved, and I think that would be the best way for me to answer your question. That's the evolution that I've seen.
I could definitely attest to that. I've seen you, Jeff, when I was speaking at CIADA earlier this year in the Carolinas at the BMW facility. Just, I think, a week and a half ago, you were in Destin, Florida at the Southeast Independent Auto Dealer Association conference. So I could see you traveling across the country and really making an effort, not just on the NIADA level, but to involve yourselves on the state associations too. So definitely kudos to you on that.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Zach. And I will tell you that every time I learn something, I feel like or at least I try to learn something every day. But when I go to those events and I hang out with those dealers, it's just invaluable how much you learn listening to the dealers. I tell people all the time, like, we need to celebrate the victories when our dealers have opportunities to celebrate, but we also kind of need to feel the pain. At the end of the day, Zach, as an association leader, we're kind of a hired gun to provide platforms and to be the voice for those dealers many times. And if you're not out there spending some time with them, it's hard to identify exactly what some of those pain points are. But when you have those lunches or those breakfasts, or you stand in the hallway, they'll pull you to the side and they'll share with you exactly what some of their pain points are.
Definitely. And as you look ahead into 2027 and beyond, what gives you the most optimism about the independent dealer community?
Wow. Well, I've said this numerous times, and I'll just continue to say it. This is an unbelievably resilient group of dealers. We've seen a lot of changes, certainly with some, some of our larger independent dealers vacating the space or leaving the space for various reasons. That creates new opportunities, new energy. You mentioned the Southeast conference the other day, spending some time with some of the new board members. The new dealers, I'm going to say the younger dealers, they're coming in with these new ideas. That's the thing that probably excites me the most, because this industry is going to change significantly. We're seeing a number of platforms out there where you can rent a car for a month, or rent a car, or be on a lease program, and the vehicle is going to they can change the vehicle out week to week, month to month. Those are going to be new platforms. And I look at it this way, Zach, those are going to be new opportunities. And some of our dealers are going to take advantage of that. And some of our other dealers are going to find other things that work for them. And I feel like for us as an association, our responsibility is, again, to kind of create those platforms, make sure that we have vendors like yourself and others who are coming in and have that opportunity to create new opportunities. And our dealers are going to take advantage of that. And that's very exciting to me.
Definitely. And lastly, for any independent dealer listening to the program, maybe they're thinking about going to the convention in Denver or just getting involved generally, any interesting kind of offers or anything for them to do to get involved with NIADA?
Yeah, the easiest thing is to shoot me an email or give me a call. We have, whether it's working on a committee with the association, I typically encourage people get involved with your state association first. I think that is ideal. If you don't have a state association, don't hesitate to reach out to me or someone on our team. If you're looking for education, we can point you in the right direction. If you're looking to get a little bit more actively involved, because I'll tell you, no association exists without members. And the value of the association, or the strength of the association, really resides in the members. And so the more active the members of the association become, the more valuable the association becomes. And so all of the power resides within the members. So absolutely, I would encourage them to reach out, let us know what their interest is, and we'll find a place for them for sure.
Love that, Jeff, and really appreciate you coming onto the podcast. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Colorado later this month. So thanks again.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you for what you do. We really appreciate it.